Welcome back to Crux Stationalis. The Roman Station Church of Santa Balbina, which is for the Tuesday of the second week of Lent, is closed for renovations, and so we return today to the Basilica of St. Peter's to discuss the processions. We have spoken a few times on this channel about the Ember Tide. This time in the liturgical year, which occurs according to the 4 seasons of the year, is dedicated to the consecration of priests. And this would take place at the tomb of the Prince of the Apostles, because every ecclesiastical power resulting from the conferral of holy orders derives from Peter, who has its fullness. His tomb thus becomes a source of life for the Church of God. The sepulchral chamber, or Confessio Beati Petri, never violated, is still found under the papal altar of the new basilica, and around it, in the 2nd and 3rd centuries, it was the official burial ground of the popes. On this tomb, Emperor Constantine, in the year 323, began to build the basilica, which remained intact until the year 1450. It had the shape of a Latin cross. At around 140 meters long and 63 meters wide, there were 5 naves divided by almost 90 columns, all coming from nearby monuments and especially from the mausoleum of Emperor Hadrian. The monumental construction of the current basilica began on April 18th in the year 1506 at the behest of Pope Julius II. It grew from year to year thanks to the work of Bramante and Michelangelo and the impulses of various popes, until it became the largest temple of Christianity, consecrated by Pope Urban VIII on November 18th in the year 1626. Its length, including the portico, is 211.5 meters, and the surface is 15,160 meters squared, which is 163,181 square feet. The liturgy retains a trace of the solemnity of a vigil and of the ceremony of the sacred ordination of priests. Historically, the ordinations would take place with a solemn Mass at 9:30 in the morning, and then at 4:15 in the afternoon, the faithful would gather again for Compline, which is the night prayer of Holy Mother Church. A procession would take place with the Litanies, which historically would even leave the church and enter into the portico. And then, upon returning to the Veronica Loggia, there would be the display of the 3 major relics of the Holy Lance of Saint Longinus, of the Holy Cross, and of Veronica's veil. The faithful gather with the prayer, "Look graciously upon your people, we beseech you, O Lord, and in your mercy turn away from them the scourges of your wrath." And further on, the prayer is prayed over the people. "May the blessing desired by your faithful give them strength, O God. May it keep them from disobeying your will and grant them ever to rejoice in your favor." The Mass for this Ember Saturday is comprised of 7 readings. The lessons are taken from the book of Deuteronomy, from which 2 come. One is taken from the 2nd book of Maccabees, another from the book of Ecclesiastes. Then the 5th lesson comes from the prophecy of Daniel. And the epistle comes from the first letter of St. Paul to the Thessalonians. These series of readings proceed in full harmony to dispose of the gifts of grace and of the Holy Spirit bestowed by God in baptism and in sacred priestly ordination. The word of Moses to the people of Israel, the prayer of Nehemiah to the Lord, and that of the Ecclesiastes, and further warning, encouragement, promise, elevation, culminating in the lesson of St. Paul for a program of life, holy and industrious, for those born again to grace and for the Lord's anointed ones, holy priests. And then the Gospel is sung from the Gospel of Matthew, recounting the story of the Transfiguration, showing the dazzling glory of Mount Tabor, the prize and crown to the faithful and victorious. Distinguished relics of the Basilica of St. Peter, which would traditionally be brought out on this day and exposed upon the main altar of the church, are that of St. Peter the Apostle, who lies in the Confessio, and then his 12 immediate successors of him, Saints Linus, Cletus, Evaristus, Alexander II, Saint Sixtus I, Saints Telosphorus, Saints Hyginus, Saint Pius I, Saint Anicetus, Saint Soter, and Saint Eleutherius, and then of Saints John Chrysostom, who used to lie in the altar of the chair, and then of Saint Gregory the Great at his chapel, Saint Pope Leo IX under the altar of Saint Martial, and of Saints Simon and Jude, apostles, under the altar of Saint Peter's Confessio, of Saint Pope Boniface IV under the altar of Saint Thomas, and of Saints Leo II, III, and IV Popes, altar of the Madonna of the Column, and of Saint Leo the Great at his very own altar, of the chair of Saint Peter, and of Saint Petronilla, 1st century virgin martyr, and of Saints Processus and Martinian, and of Saint Gregory Nazianzen under the altar of the Madonna. The litanies used to begin with an antiphon to Our Lady and all the saints, and then the singing of the litany. After the litanies, with their prayers of supplication at the end, the celebrant would pray yet again the oration from the Mass, the collect, with prayers following, asking for the freedom from sin and from enemies. Then an antiphon with a prayer would be prayed to the holy martyrs, and then to the Holy Cross, and finally a blessing with the relic of the Holy Cross would be bestowed upon the faithful. And as stated here at the Basilica of St. Peter's, not only was the relic of the Holy Cross displayed, but also that of the lance which pierced the side of Jesus and the veil of Veronica. Now, in the modern life of the Church, on this first Saturday of the first week of Lent, Ember Saturday, the relic which is prominently displayed is this one of the lance of Saint Longinus. Here it is solemnly exposed in all directions, and a blessing is given upon the faithful. Thank you for joining us at Crup Stationalis for the Roman Station Church Itinerary. I'll see you tomorrow, and may God bless you during this season of Lent.